Event Master Trainer. My name is Jason Burke, event expert and CEO of the High Performance Summit. I want to welcome everyone that's here. We'll get started here in a few minutes, but let me tell you a little bit about my background and why you should listen to me. One of the things is I've done over 200 events between live and virtual events. I've worked with some of the top companies in the personal development and real estate education space, including Bill Walsh, the CEO of Palatine International, raising capital expert Brad Blazer. He's raised $2 billion, connected to Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington. I've worked with Mac Millian and Paul Fink, that's connected to Mark Cuban. I've worked with Ford Riley, one of the pitch queen that's done over $2 billion in business. I've worked with some of the top guys in the space and event. And then this free training today, I'm going to really go over the do's and don'ts for events, whether it be a virtual event, your live events, what are the top 3 mistakes events, how to determine a technology platform, what goes into selecting a venue for your events. And at the end of this training, I'm going to give you an offer to join my event coaching, which I do 6 to 3 months, where I coach people from the start to finish how to create, plan, fill, and execute your events. So we're going to have a great day here, a great next 45 minutes of content and event mastery here by me, Jason Burke. And I want to welcome everyone that's here right now and get going. So really, one of the things, and we're going to start this here in a minute, but one of the things I want to talk about to kick off is really committing to the date of events. And this doesn't really matter if this is a virtual event or a live event. And I've seen this mistake done by a lot of people that have these great ideas for events, but then never commit to a date, never commit to actually doing the events. And I was in Vegas for 9 years, and I've run over multiple people that talked about these great events, and 3 years later, they'd be still talking about this great event, but they never execute it. Remember, you got to commit to the date of the event and execute, because the event is a process. And over time, you're going to get better. After you do the first one, you'll make adjustments to the second one. When you do the second one, you make adjustments to the third one. But if you don't commit to a date, nothing's going to happen. All you got to do is talk about an event that never takes place, and that doesn't serve anybody at all. So one of the mistakes I see definitely out there is the fact that people are committed to actually doing the events. And that's one of the first things. You got to commit to a date. Now, once you've committed to that date, so whether it be a virtual, a webinar, or a live event, as we're coming out of COVID now, we're seeing a lot more live events. And so one of the things you want to look at is if you're doing a virtual event, you want to decide the technology platform. And a lot of people make the mistake of trying to use something really fancy at the beginning. And my advice to you is this: you got to use things that you're most comfortable with, that you can execute a good experience for your audience, especially for virtual webinar, virtual summit. You want to, like things like Zoom. Zoom gives you the ability to have a webinar feature. You can invite panelists to share their screens. You get to have controls of the audience. There's chat features, there's Q&A features on that. So Zoom is a great platform. The difference is there's 2 Zooms, there's Zoom webinar and there's Zoom meeting. And in Zoom meeting, you can do breakout rooms, you can sign people. So that's a lot more for networking events, or if you're doing like joint venture seminars where you're going to have breakout rooms. Zoom meeting is a great thing for that. Zoom webinar does not have that feature, but it's great for enclosed webinars, especially for trainings that you're going to be having multiple speakers or you're just going to be doing yourself. That's a great feature on Zoom webinar, because it allows you to have the events, and plus it records it so you can save it. And then what you can do is you can download the Dropbox or download the iMovie or whatever editing software to edit your event after the event is over. There's also other platforms out there like StreamYard. StreamYard is a great platform to use. I mean, you can use it. It's a little bit different than Zoom. You can stream into Facebook and LinkedIn even a little more effectively than that. You get virtual backgrounds as well, and you can have a comment feature and stuff. And there's also platforms like Webinar Jam for a while. But you really want to start out when it comes to technology. What is the platform that you're most comfortable with? Don't go for the one that has all the bells and whistles right away when you're first beginning or planning. Use something that you're going to be comfortable with. Your team knows what they're doing. You can execute a great experience. And that's really important. You want to execute a great experience for your audience. So use a platform that gives you the opportunity to really execute that experience. And everyone's a little different. Zoom, like as a Zoom meeting, it's like $12 to $15 a month. The webinar, $40 a month that you can use. That is, but so it's like $56 a month. StreamYard's a little less. It's $39 a month. You have Webinar Jam, and it goes up depending on how many users and how big your events are going to be. But that's one of the things that you want to look at really is the ease of use for your team at the beginning. Because a lot of people try to get fancy platforms with the bells and whistles before they're ready for them. And then the experience of the virtual event just did not come out that great. And that's not what you want. So you want to use something that's ease of use. Now, that is for your virtual events. Now, I know as we come out of COVID here, we're going to be talking about your live events as well. And one of the things you want to look at with live events, your virtual platform, especially with live events, is really picking a meeting space. And you want to learn these things when you're picking the meeting space. One, you want to talk to the person in charge in sales and catering to find out how much space do they have? Can they accommodate a theater style? Can they accommodate tables? Do they have room for your sales tables in the back? Registration table? Do they have AV equipment there? Will they let you bring in your own AV equipment? This all goes into venue selection. And this is what you want to really determine in the venue selection. You want to be asking these questions at the beginning, because if you're asking the questions of how big is the meeting space, how many people can you max capacity hold, tell the person how many people you actually need for the event, tell them the requirements on the sales table, how many tables you need for the back of the sales, registration table, will they have water pitchers out there? Can they set up the room the way you want? Do they have the times available? This is all important things when you're selecting a venue for your events, to be asking questions and everything. So you know, and you got to know your budget. So you got to know how much you're going to be charging for the tickets. If it's a free event, you got to know the back end sales, because that is another key thing for you. And you want to know what the back end sales really are, especially if you're doing a free event, because it's really the conversion in the back end where you're going to make the money. Where if it's a paid event, you know you get so much ticket revenue, which is always great. Now, if you're doing like a free workshop, I always recommend doing like an hour and a half, 2 hour workshop or 3 hour, but have an upsell to a weekend where you charge for that. It could be as low as 97, it could be all the way up to 5,000. It really depends on your business model, but you want to know your numbers, especially when you're paying for meeting spaces. So you got to know that you can cover the meeting space, that you can definitely pay for that meeting space, either be through ticket sales that you're having come in the door, or if you're having speaker sponsorships. These are the things you want to know when you're looking at venues for your events and how you can negotiate that. Now, one of the great techniques that I've used over the years, and it's really been really effective on that when it comes to meeting spaces, when you first start out, there's a lot of companies that have training rooms. In these training rooms, sometimes what they do, if you let them speak for a minute, 2 minutes, or even 5 minutes, they'll offer you the training room for free or a discount. This will save you, just this technique alone will save you thousands of dollars when it comes to venues. I did this many times with my Las Vegas real estate inside club meetings, where I'd find mortgage offices, title companies that all had training rooms that I could use that free barter trade and no cost. And that's a great way when you first start out to save thousands of dollars, especially when you're first starting your workshops and your seminars. And because you're not paying the cost of a hotel, like we just went over, because you have all those things you have to do for a hotel. So that's a great tip right there on how to save money just on when you first start out on your meeting spaces. Now, I do want to talk another thing on venue selection is also, if you're doing like a major event or you're doing a multi-speaker event, one of the things sometimes is conferences will have sleeping rooms or have hotel rooms. This is what you got to know on that. You never want to have a room block bigger than what your need is, because if those sleeping rooms aren't sold, you as the event organizer will be responsible for paying that bill. I know, because I've learned this through the lessons of hard knocks. What you want to do is, if you're going to do a room block, only order the minimum number of rooms that you know there's a demand that people are going to actually pay for. or better yet, when you first start out, you may not have that type of budget. Negotiate a discount code with the hotel and say, hey, if you can give us like 20% off or 15% off, or 25% off normal room prices for our guests that are going to stay with your hotel. But it's a first come, first serve basis. The hotel can sell the rooms to other guests, so they're not holding those rooms aside. And by doing that, you'll save yourself thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars if you have a room block and they don't sell, you're on the hook for that. But if you have a discount code and the hotel keeps the rooms open to sell to anyone, you won't owe any money if they don't buy the rooms. Because you got to realize a lot of people will shop around for deals online. Just because you hold an event in a location, that doesn't mean your guests are necessarily going to stay there. So you have to decide the demand for that. And so you have to decide, is it worth to have room block and only get the minimum amount of rooms that you really need for that, and don't overdo that. And so that's a great tip when it comes to meeting room selection for live events as we're coming out of this COVID thing. Now, what I want to talk about is speaker selection. Now, speaker selection is very important for your event. And I'm going to tell you some tips on how to find out if speakers are a right fit for your stage or not. Now, your first thing question you want to ask is, what is their target audience? What is their ideal customer? Because when you're talking to a speaker, you got to get a sense of what type of audience do they want to speak in front of. And it doesn't matter if it's a virtual live event, because by asking that question, you will ascertain if it's a good idea to have them speak on your stage or not. Especially if you have speaker sponsorships and they're paying, you definitely want to zero in, is this a good fit for this person? If it's not a good fit, what you want to do is you want to refer them maybe to another stage where you already have a relationship with, where you can maybe get affiliate commission that they're a better fit for. If they're not a good fit, don't put them on your stage, because they're not going to have a successful outcome and they'll be pissed at you. Instead, refer them to someone else or offer another service. But you want to ask that question because you'll find out there. Second question you want to ask is, how much are they charging for the coaching program? Because based on the client or the audience you have and what they're charging, you'll know if that's a good fit or not. Is that audience going to pay those prices? Because if they're not going to pay those prices, you don't necessarily want to have it, because they're not going to make enough sales to get that investment back, or to get the time invested to travel to the event if it's a live event. So you want to ask that question, is what the ideal pricing for the coaching program is. And then one of the most important things you got to ask is, if you decide to have them on your stage, whether it be you let them speak for free or they're paying you to be on your stage, you want to determine the JV, the joint venture agreement. What's your revenue share on the sales they make? So say you're just doing a straight revenue share. You invite them to speak and you do a revenue share. Is it 50-50? Is it 75-25? And then how fast are you going to get paid? Because some speakers, you may not get paid on those sales for 30 to 45 days after the event ends. So you got to be cognizant of that. And you got to make sure there's a clear understanding of that, because some speakers have a 30 to 45 day window. Some companies, it may be 7 days to 14 days. So when you bring outside speakers, you got to know that. And then, are you collecting the money, or is the outside speaker collecting the money? And you got to have the affiliate agreement in place with how they're going to pay you. Are they going to do bank transfer? Are they going to pay through PayPal? You got to have all that in place. So that's an important thing to create joint ventures with speakers. And also the questions I went over, I just want to say again, you want to ask again, what's the target audience? You want to also ask, what is the price of their program? Because those two questions will give you a really good idea really quickly if they're a good fit for your stage or not. And then the third, if they are a good fit, you want to find out joint ventures, negotiate the JV split, and how fast are you going to get paid based on the sale. So if it's 30 or 45 days and you have an event on the 10th, you know you're not going to see that money to the next month. So you got to plan for that as the organizer, so there's no tension or confusion with that. Now, one of the things also I want to talk about is sponsorships. This is a great way to drive upfront revenue, especially if you do multi-speaker events. And one of the things is, for sure, if you do multi-speaker events, this is a great way to drive revenue. Like, especially if speakers aren't looking to really promote the event and market it. Like, if they're a JV partner and they're pushing your event hard, you may give them a free spot because they're really pushing the event. But if they just want to come on and speak at your event, then what you have to do is you can create speaker sponsorships. And this is some of the things I've done, and this is with the summit. Like I'll have 60 minutes of speaking time. So you want to tell them how much speaking time. I'll offer packages 60 to 30 minutes. Next, you want to say you'll get the registration database from that event, because that's attractive to the speakers so they can follow up, especially if it's a virtual event like it's been recently, because they don't have the live interaction. Then you want to say, okay, I have the recording. You can use the recording for your marketing. Now with the recording, you can edit. Now, if you started out, you can use something like iMovie. iMovie is inexpensive. It's on Apple. It's a free app, and you can use to edit it. Now, you can also go up to Final Cut Pro if you're an Apple user, and if you're a PC user, I'm sure they have softwares that you can use for that as well. So you want to look at, okay, that's another thing they can offer. Like you can get the list. You have so much speaking time. And then you give them a price range based on, hey, if you pay like our gold for a summit event is $1,997, but they keep 100% on the back end. And then we have two versions where they do rev share after they make $14.97. We do a 50-50 at that point. So it allows them to make the initial investment back, and then they do the rev share. Now, if it's a 30-minute package, we've done it at $9.97, and then they'll do 50-50. Now, if you're letting them speak for free and they're not paying you upfront, then the rev share starts right away on the first sale. But this is something you want to think about when creating speaker sponsorships: is what type of exposure they're going to get, how many people they're going to ask you, how many people you have on your list. So you want to do that as well. You want to tell them what the list size is. You want to tell them how you're going to promote the event. You want to set the proper expectations, how many people are going to attend, what's the low, what's the high, based on the averages of the event. What time you want to email them the agenda in advance. So if they're a sponsor, they want to know the agenda for day 1, day 2, what time are they speaking, because based on the time they're speaking, if it's a live event, you got to make sure that they're there early enough, and you should have set up that day like 90 minutes to 2 hours before the event. So you want to make sure that's the case, and you want to clearly communicate that when you're creating those sponsorship packages. And that is really important when you're creating that as a speaker, because that's upfront revenue for you, especially if you're doing a multi-speaker event and you have multiple speakers, you have AV costs. That helps you at the beginning with upfront capital, because the back end sales, like I went over earlier, is going to take usually 30 to 45 days to pay out normally. So you're not going to see that money right away until the next month or for a month and a half. Maybe in some cases you might see in a week or 2 weeks. It just depends on the company and how fast they pay out, what's their refund policies. So that upfront sponsorship money is going to help you pay your expenses with combination with the ticket sales. So those things will help cover your costs at the beginning of the event. And then the money from your own coaching program on the back end, and also the money from the outside speakers and their sales, will help make you profit. But you want to be really clear. So that's just some tips really on the speaker selection end of things. And also I went over the joint venture. What I'm going to go over now is also you got to look at, what do you do on the day of a live event? How's that setup really work? And this is something where if you run your own workshop, you run your own seminar, here are some general rules. You want to get about an hour and a half to 2 hours prior to the event. You want to be in that meeting room, checking everything out to make sure the hotel set it up the way you want. You want to make sure the chairs are set up right. You want to make sure the AV equipment works right. If you're doing a major multi-speaker event, you want to get in there the night before that. You want to make sure you tell your vendors to arrive 2 hours prior, or if you can get them in the night before to set up, even better. You want to make sure they're all set up. You want to make sure the room's set up right. You want to make sure the AV equipment works properly. You want to make sure you have the registration tables in the back. You want to make sure you have the water pitchers in the back. You want to make sure your registration tables on the outside. You have people there to greet people in, signing sheets, name badges, and then you want to greet them in the door. You want to keep the door closed until 10 minutes prior to the event. You want people to network outside. You want to build excitement when they come in. You want to have some nice music, some pump-up music. If you're doing a multi-speaker event, you may even want to bring in an outside MC if you don't feel you're that person, to get the energy in the room going, because a great MC can really help you speak outside speakers with the sales. If you're doing a multi-speaker event, if you're just doing your own workshop, you still want to have great music. Maybe you have one of your team members or yourself get everyone excited and then they bring you up on the stage. So you're creating that energy and that atmosphere with that live event experience. So you want to know those things. You want to determine who is going to be your core team members, who is going to volunteer, so you can get some volunteers that do registration. Maybe give them a free VIP ticket or a free general admission ticket. You offer lunch. That's part of also setting up the day of the event, because if you get there early enough, you make sure all the equipment is right, you make sure everything's done properly, your event will go on without a hitch. Now, one of the things I want to also go into is setting up the agenda. Setting up the agenda is very important, because and also making sure speakers stick to the agenda. So you want to have the agenda posted outside for a live event on the wall so people can see the agenda. You want the speakers to know what time they're coming in, what time they need to be in the meeting space, what time they need to be there for setup. You also want to keep track of the time that they're speaking to make sure they stay on time, because if they go over, it's going to knock your next speaker back. And if you get too far behind in a multi-speaker event, you won't catch up. Now, if it's just you or one or two speakers and you run a little over, just allow yourself some leeway time. Like, for example, if you think your event's going to go from 9 to 5, have the meeting space from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Give yourself that 2-hour leeway both ways, so you have the space. You're not under pressure to hurry and get out of the room, especially when you're networking and want to create more sales. That is really important too, is you want to give yourself enough time between how much time. So if you have a 9 to 5 each day, have the room from 7 to 7, because then at least you know you got the 2 hours in the front to get in there and set up and make sure everything's good. You got the 2 hours in the back. So if you're running behind schedule for whatever reason, the hotel manager is not coming in and saying you guys got to clear out. You're giving yourself that grace period. So you really want to be able to do that, and that will help your event be more successful. We're going to go over some strategies on how to fill your events. One of the things you can do is, there's a couple of strategies I'm going to give you right now. And one is create a meetup community. This doesn't cost a lot of money. This costs like $12 to $35 a month, depending on what plan, if you use basic meetup or pro meetup. But one of the great things of using meetup is, once you create a meetup group, meetup starts putting a group out there, which helps you get more followers and tracks more followers in. So you're building a list, you're building a database. And then once you get them into your meetup group, you can also broadcast. So you want to create links that you can broadcast so they'll opt in, which is a great way to grow your community, grow your list with your live events, your virtual events. So that's one way. You can create meetup, which is great. Facebook groups are another great way. You can create a community on Facebook. You can do a couple of things. You can create a public group on Facebook. Do a couple of things. You can create a public group on Facebook. You can create a public group. You can create a private Facebook group for your coaching clients. So you can have different communities for your coaching, for your events, and you can create that on Facebook. And that's wonderful, and that's free to you to use. You can also create a LinkedIn group, because on LinkedIn, you'll find a lot more professionals. You can create a LinkedIn group. You can also create a LinkedIn event page as well, where you market your events on LinkedIn. You can invite your connections to opt in. Now, I do have to tell you, when you do that, you have to message them, because some people will think they're opting into a connection. And you want to say something like this: thank you for accepting my LinkedIn event invitation. To register for this event, please click the link below. Then add in what the value of the event's going to be, what are the top 3 things they're going to get from it. We look forward to seeing you there. And then send that message. And once people opt into the LinkedIn event, you can broadcast, you can upload videos, you can upload photos, you can send messages to the ideal attendees. So that's another great way you can use marketing. Instagram is great for really photos and videos. So if you're using video marketing, Instagram is a great way to get yourself out there. You want to do followers, you can add to your stories. Once you get to 10,000 followers, you can use the swipe up option. For me, I like to use LinkedIn. I also use Facebook. Also, another great way to market is Eventbrite. Eventbrite, you can create an Eventbrite page. You can market that. People can opt into the Eventbrite page. And that is a great way for you to market your event. And that's just a few strategies that you can use when you're starting out to really market your event and build your community as well. I want to open it up. Does anyone have some really killer content in this webinar right here, this free training today? And like I said, everyone that attended today is going to get my free ebook for free, Become Big Star in Event Planning, published on Amazon. Also, I'm offering my event coaching program, 6 months of coaches, $1,997. What we do with that is you get one 60-minute discovery session, 12 bi-weekly 45-minute strategy calls with me. You'll also get unlimited text and email support, so you can have questions between the calls. If you need to answer something, I'll get back to you. And well, really, our goal is to help you be more successful. We also offer payment plans as well. We do $1,027 for 2 pay and $697 for three payments as well. I also offer a 3-month coaching program that's $997 for 1 payment, or you can do 2 payments at $527, or we do 3 payments at $369. So there's different payment options as well. And we have a 1 pay, and that's 3 months. And our goal is going to take you from creation to execution of event. And so I put that in the chat, the 6-month, 3-month. I also put my calendar link in there. So if you click on my calendar, book a call, a discovery call, you can go to event coaching intro and book a call with me. And I'd be happy to take we usually be like a 30-minute call where we'll go over some of your needs and what you really need to be successful and what type of event you're looking to do, and discuss how we can help you get started with our event coaching and how we can help you be more successful. Again, we really deliver some awesome content today, but I want to get this in. And like I said, we went over today, we covered a good amount. We talked about community event, we talked about the technology, we talked about venue selection, we talked about how to execute your live events and what you need to do as well. We talked about some marketing strategies. So we went over some really great content. We'll send you the replay of this event as well, so you guys can see that. So do you guys have any questions for me at this point? And like I said, you can get in contact with me. You can click on my calendar link to book a discovery call for my event coaching. If you're ready to get started today with event coaching, you can click on the 6-month or 3-month coaching link. 6 months is $1,097. 3 months is $997. We also have payment options, which we can do as well. So you can click on the link. I put that in the chat as well. And I'll even put that back into the event mastery training with me, Jason Burke, event expert and CEO of